Good morning and welcome to the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 26th. We do begin each of our meetings with an invocation, and this morning we have Mr. Jeff Anderson from the Road Church. We invite you to stand and join us.
All right, as we begin our prayer, this is a psalm of David. It says, "The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord are pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb." Our Heavenly Father, we thank you today that you have given us a solid foundation upon which we can build our lives, our families, our businesses, our community. We thank you that you've given us the Word of God that guides us in truth. It is more to be desired than gold, is sweeter than honey and the honeycomb. And Lord, today, as we are in this season, we think especially of some of the needs in our community, such as our schools. And as schools are getting started, we pray, Lord, that you would place a hedge and a protection around each one of them. Pray that you will guard over our schools from any who would try to bring harm. We pray that you'll bless our teachers and administrators, those who are serving our community by sacrificing and teaching and serving and developing our next generation. We also pray, Lord, for those students. We pray that they would thrive. And we thank you, Lord, that so many schools and school districts in our community are just being innovative in their approach. They're being creative, and they're getting great results. And Lord, we pray that there would be wonderful, really great results for all of our students in our schools this year. Pray that the area school boards would be wise and careful in the decisions that they make. And again, Lord, we think of the mental health of our students. That's something that we as a body are very concerned about, but there's so little that we can do about it. We acknowledge, Lord, that we need you to intervene, to protect them, Lord, from things such as depression or other mental health issues or isolation. Protect them, Lord, from any kind of addictions that so easily come in. We pray, Lord, against this fentanyl pandemic that would try to harm our young people. And we just ask, Lord, that our kids would have your thoughts toward them, that they would recognize that they are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and that you'll just give them a peace of mind, and that they'll be able to be sensitive in caring for each other. Lord, we pray for other community concerns concerning our county. We'd ask, Lord, for those that are out in this kind of weather, working on our roads, trying to get ready for the winter season. We pray that you would place a hedge about them and protect them. Pray the drivers would be careful while they're on the roads. And then, Lord, there's some decisions that need to be made today that we really need your wisdom. And we're asking, Lord, that you would guide us and direct us, even when we have some disagreement as a community on things. We pray, Lord, that we can come to a consensus and do what is best for our whole community, and that we would do that with a heart of wisdom. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
And I'll ask our news commissioner, Commissioner Nelson, if you'd like to lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3.
Item number 3 is staff emergency items, and I'm unaware of any staff emergency items today.
Item 4.
Item 4 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. I'm unaware of any changes or postponements to today's agenda, and the next meeting will be Thursday, August 28th at 9 o'clock for land use.
Item 5.
Item number 5 is the consent calendar, including items 5A1 through 5P11.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on an item on the consent calendar? Seeing none in the room and none online, I'll bring it up here for comments or motion.
I did just want to thank all of the individuals who've stepped forward to volunteer on boards, and I would move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? With that, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Weissong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate.
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Item 6.
Item number 6 is comments by elected officials and commissioner liaison reports.
Okay, do we have any countywide elected officials online? I don't see any in the room. We'll begin with Commissioner Weissong then.
Been a busy couple of weeks with no board meetings, which gave us a lot of time to go out and about and do a lot of tours. But to keep it short, I did want to read something that I think is really important. The Monument Fire District in Monument, Colorado has received accredited agency status with the Commission of Fire Accreditation International for meeting the criteria established through the CFAI's Voluntary Self-Assessment and Accreditation Program. What makes this really important is they are one of 300 agencies in the country that meets this requirement, and we now have 2 in El Paso County. So Monument Fire District and the city of Colorado Springs. So that is a huge bonus for the Monument Fire District as they sit on the northern border of the county to provide top-notch fire and emergency services. And secondly, on Wednesday of last week, attended a wildfire and post-wildfire flood analysis in a tabletop exercise, which was conducted by PPACG, a couple of consultants, and it was an all-day program to understand, what would happen in a wildfire if it moved through the western side of the academy. And in some instances, it could actually cross I-25. And it was a great program to look and understand what's available in the future. There's a lot of updates that weren't included in this, but what was really fascinating is post-fire flooding. For any of you that lived here in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, 2013, we had heavy rainfall in the Waldo Canyon burn scar and did a tremendous amount of damage, 3 or 4 feet of mud on Highway 24, and then went roaring through Manitou Springs. So it's definitely an issue in the fact that we now have some of the capability and the tools to start thinking and planning much deeper into any kind of an event like this, I think is hands-off. Had a good meeting with the Office of Emergency Management yesterday, and they're actually doing some of this work already. So it's great to know that the county is well prepared and doing great things.
Commissioner Nelson.
Good morning. So it has been a busy couple of weeks, even though we haven't been meeting as a board. Last week, I listened in on the Community Corrections Board, and I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the work that they do for our community so that as now I'm on the appointing committee, I can make wise decisions on who should be serving on that board. And I'm very grateful for the volunteers that step up and serve our community in this way and helping determine who should be moving on to community corrections and having a chance to show that they can make different choices and who maybe needs to spend some time away in prison. So I also last week had an orientation with our DA's office, and that was really great to understand how they are serving our community, and just a shout out to the work that they're doing there, that they are, let's see, I have the numbers here. So they have a very high conviction rate when compared to other DA's offices in our state. And I think that's just a testament to the hard work that they put in to make sure that individuals that are making poor choices are suffering the consequences so that then hopefully they can make different choices in the future. And it's just a very victim-oriented mindset that they're coming from in that office and considering the victims that were impacted by those individuals. This week, I have a Board of Health meeting and then a Region 16 Opioid Abatement Council meeting on Wednesday. And then Friday morning, I believe, I was going to say Director Commissioner Weisong and I are touring the Children's Hospital. So I look forward to that and seeing and understanding how they're serving our community and the young ones. Thanks.
Commissioner Applegate.
To a trip in the Wayback Machine. We'll go back about 3 weeks. So Wednesday, August 6th, I attended a community leaders breakfast. It was good to see all the council members there, as well as I think Commissioner Williams and Will Weisong was in attendance. Later that night, I caught the Breakfast of Champions. They did their kickoff event, launch event. Carl Lewis will be the Olympian, the speaker this year for that event. We also attended a Thursday, a citywide National Day of Prayer. It was a very good event hosted by Radiant Church. And Friday, me and Commissioner Weisong, we toured the Ruxton Hydro Plant, one of the first hydro plants they ever built in the area. And it was celebrating a 100-year anniversary, and it powers about roughly, 600 homes? 600 homes, small amount, but it was good to see the kind of the setup that CSU has little contingencies in place, so kind of neat. On the 12th, we attended the Accolades Luncheon. I think that was me and Commissioner Williams, and Connie Podesta was a riot, and it was good to see those women from the chamber win those awards and show what they've achieved and what they've been able to better their businesses. There was also, I took a tour of the chapel on Thursday, August 14th. They're doing a remodel right now at the Air Force Academy in their chapel. Me and a few community leaders, we were able to see that, and the contractor showed us around. We're allowed to take any pictures, though, kind of sensitive. Was a government job. And on the 19th, I attended the State of the Outdoors. One of the keynote speakers was Congressman Jeff Crank. And Catholic Charities did a VIP opening. They did ribbon cutting for their Hunt family home. There's a new home they opened for families that have recently experienced homelessness. And finally, to wrap up the week, last Friday, a lot of us were I was at the Pueblo Legislative Barbecue, where because of our amazing leadership in the State House and they were in special session, no state legislators attended, so rather disappointing. But it was a good event. I got to see some of the various leaders from the area and talk with them and hear people speak. Congressman Jeff Hurd was out there. And to wrap up the week, Saturday, I was at the Pasta in the Park, hosted by Tessa. So, thank you.
Vice Chair Williams.
Commissioner Applegate reminded me of a few of events that have occurred in the past few weeks because we've been gone for 2 weeks. Personally, I've had a tough 2 weeks. I had a little sickness, so didn't get a lot done in the past 2 weeks, but the Women's Chamber of Commerce event was very inspirational. A good friend of mine, Megan Latham, received the Business Person of the Year award for her work at the Sports Corporation. She used to be my daughter's high school basketball coach and has always been a close friend. Just really, really excited for her. I don't have much on my schedule this week. I have some comments. Some of them are going to be very harsh towards the Democrats at our state legislature. We can work really hard. We can build up a reserve, but when it comes time to cutting spending, the Democrats can't figure out how to do it. So they schedule a special session in the middle of the state fair. The biggest event in the state fair are two events. One is the state legislative barbecue. The other is the Denver Rustlers driving down on their buses, which they do stop at the top of Monument Hill, which is important to us today, to change buses. The elected officials do, to go to the auction. To go to a state legislative barbecue and only have one state senator show up, which was actually Barb Kirkmeyer, was really embarrassing and shows a lack of support by the Democrats in this state for our rural community. It was embarrassing. It was not fair to the State Fair Commission, who worked so hard to put on a good event. And it was the worst legislative barbecue I have been to in the 8 years I have been as commissioner, and probably the other 4 or 5 years I've attended when my husband was a statewide elected official. If the Democrats need to schedule a special session to figure out their budget because they can't figure out how to make any tax cuts, then they darn well better still support our rural community, because our rural community is getting angry at them. And we have long memories. As we recall, it was but 6 or 7 years ago when Governor Polis banned meat. And so we all had to have meat-in days so that we could have beef. And it was just really, really unfair to the state board. Now on to the state legislative session. They're still working. We will have an update today. To my knowledge, and Commissioner Geithner will correct me if I'm wrong, it's $11,000 a day for them to meet. And they decide to try and address artificial intelligence in 4 days. If I can just be honest, I grew up and went to college using AOL, dial-up internet. I don't think that many of these Democrats in the state legislature know what dial-up internet is. And perhaps they should go back and watch the movie You've Got Mail. If they expect to solve artificial intelligence, including not only creating governmental liability for any decisions that are made by artificial intelligence, but also individual governmental liability, can we say Trial Lawyers Association, they're going to just drive Colorado further into the hole than it already is. And I said that because you cannot solve, if it took 25 years to figure out how to get from dial-up internet to Wi-Fi, they can't solve artificial intelligence in 4 days. I'm sorry, they're just not that smart, and neither am I. They need to spend the full entire legislative session addressing this. This needs to move slowly, and they need to be careful about putting counties under more liability, because that's what happened with construction defects legislation. They decided that developers were having problems with condominiums, so they passed legislation. The developers are not, they're a very smart group. They figured out how to make money. So the day that legislation passed, every condominium plan was dropped. A condominium was hardly built since, because it was just too much of a risk for the developers to take that on. And that's been since 2002. If you can point to the affordable housing crisis, and one thing that has caused that, it is construction defect legislation run by the Democrats and the Trial Attorneys Association. So we'll have a legislative update later today, but I have been extremely, extremely disappointed in our state legislature. If they can't figure out how to make a cut in a single one of their programs, then they all need to be voted out of office. Thank you.
Important words on the special session, and I'll add a bit to those as well here as I wrap up my comments. But I also will be participating in Board of Health. And I just want to take a minute to make sure my colleagues are fully aware and the public is fully aware that the Board of Health has been engaged in a search for a new permanent director for the Board of Health. That's a very, very important search process and will make a big difference about how the Board of Health and the Department of Health moves forward in the future. So that is very important work that is being done currently. And that is consuming a lot of what we are doing, but also one of the things that is going on in public health in general is that we are seeing the federal government pull back on a lot of the COVID-related dollars. Unsurprisingly, I think most of us know that we are not dealing with the COVID pandemic, but we're seeing the same thing happen with public health, particularly the state public health department, as we are seeing with the state right now. There was all of these federal dollars that flooded in, one-time dollars, and those are drying up. And as a result, we have not only a lawsuit, our state is suing over trying to keep more of those dollars. And public health is going to have to scale back. There's just no way around that. There is no more, is no more reason to have those COVID-related extra government employees, all of those things. So there's a lot happening at Board of Health. I want to make sure my colleagues know that. I know we try to update each other on all of those different places that we serve, but that's just something I think is very important for you all to know that is happening, and for the public to know that as well. And so happy to engage in any conversations regarding that for whether constituents or board members here, commissioners who have questions about how those things are going. I will also be participating in the Opioid Council, other important work that is happening in our community. I also have regional building. And just to touch a bit on the special session, I was out enjoying some family time. And so don't have as much to report as some of the others over the last little bit, but following a bit of the session, I too am very disappointed about what is happening. It is very clear that the call from the governor was not to cut spending, it was to raise revenue. And unfortunately, raising revenue means they are looking for more ways to take dollars from you. I think it has been a deplorable sham, quite frankly, that the Democrats have continued. I have said, I know that sometimes we all know the jokes about politicians not telling the truth. We're all aware of that, right? And I've never seen such blatant, outright falsehoods being told by leaders of our state as what I am seeing today. I almost can't believe it. To continue to blame the federal government for what we have all been discussing as a structural deficit in the state for years, to just try to pass the buck is so irresponsible and so far from leadership. Anyone who is so willing to pass off the mistakes that have been made with our state budget in a political theater, the way that is being done, does not deserve to be in leadership, is not doing the people of the state of Colorado any service whatsoever. So it's just very disappointing to see the continued fake rhetoric that is coming out of this session. I think we have to face reality, just like we all do around our kitchen tables. It's great when we get additional money, whether that's from an additional job or just different things that are happening in our lives, but we all know that when it's one-time money coming in, you can't go out and, get a new car payment that's going to be ongoing for the next 5 years if you're only getting $1,000 one time. And that's what our state has done. Rather than saying this is one-time money, we can't expand, we can't put ourselves into a place where we have ongoing expenses, they've taken on all of those extra things. And rather than now going back and saying, gosh, we can't afford these things, they're looking to take it out of your pocket. And they're lying about where they're taking it from. Tax on tips and overtime is one of those things. And in addition to that, I truly believe what they're doing is a violation of Tabor. They need to ask you before they take more money. I think we're going to see lawsuits on this. It's just poor leadership. This goes beyond any kind of partisan divide. This is just common sense. Just common sense. And it's really sad because we're seeing our state decline. I've seen unemployment, different economic indicators that are showing we are not in as good shape as we should be compared to the rest of the nation. And that's because of poor leadership and decisions here in our state. We have to demand better from our leaders. It's very important for all of us. And I do believe voters are seeing some of this. But anyway, I will just add that what is happening is just terrible. I thank Commissioner Williams for her comments as well, because it is just incredibly disappointing what is happening during the special session right now. And with that, I will just say, since we do have a meeting on Thursday, but we do not have commissioner comments on our Thursday meeting, that this weekend is obviously upcoming, the Labor Day liftoff and Labor Day weekend. Wish everyone a safe, long weekend, and hopefully you enjoy either the liftoff or some other great activities as we roll into fall. And I think the weather is trying to prepare us this week for that. So with that, we are on to item 7.
Item number 7 is community service organization reports, and there are none.
Item 8.
Item number 8 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. And Madam Chair, I'm unaware of anyone signing in ahead of time to speak, but there is one person that would like to be called in today.
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? All right, seeing none here, I guess we'll go ahead and do our call-in.
While he's doing that, I just have a slight redo. I will say that the people who did attend from Colorado Springs, the state fair, were very, very pleasant company. So I did want a couple of people to know that. I really enjoyed the people I knew there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm assuming people can hear me, or somebody will stop me in a second if they cannot. My name is Catherine Chukas. I live in County Commissioner District 3 in the northwest side of Colorado Springs. I'm speaking about the Pikes Peak Library District and about common sense regarding the Pikes Peak Library District that we all would agree about. Last week at the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees meeting, I heard good news about the millions of dollars of donations that will be used to purchase the Ruth Hawley Library building and ensure this library will remain open in Colorado Springs. However, at that meeting, I believe the audio quality prevented the Board of Trustees and the public from hearing about another multi-million-dollar donation for a library building. I want to bring this to all of your attention to ensure you're aware of this multi-million-dollar donation proposed and how this offer will play a role in your oversight of the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees. Last Wednesday, a property owner offered to donate a building on the northwest side of Colorado Springs so that the Pikes Peak Library District can own a library building there and open a library district on the northwest side of Colorado Springs again. The square footage fits with the master facilities plans for new libraries in the Pikes Peak Library District. And as a result of the donation, the Pikes Peak Library District would own the library space, which also fits with the master facilities plan. The location of the donated building is closer to the prior Rock Rimmon Library than the Bookmobile site that was opened as its replacement at the Wilson Ranch Pool. August and September of 2025 could be filled with good news and positive public relations, positive PR for the county, the city, and the Pikes Peak Library District if there was some public acknowledgement of the desire to investigate and do the due diligence on this donation of real estate property. That's just common sense. I'd encourage the intergovernmental team who meets about the Pikes Peak Library District to understand this donation prior to their meeting next week. It's well worth your time to be aware of this multi-million-dollar donation, how it fits with the facilities master plan, and the impact on the impression that this donation makes with the donors and foundations in the Pikes Peak region, the residents in El Paso County, and with voters as well. Thank you very much.
Do we have anyone else online? Okay, with that, we are on to item 9.
Item number 9 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up today.
Item 10.
Item number 10 is the application by Ceda Liquors, Inc., doing business as Spirits House Liquors to renew their retail liquor store license located at 6 Widefield Boulevard, Commissioner District Number 4, Jackie Allred, Clerk to the Board Manager, and Terry Sample, Senior Assistant County Attorney. And Madam Chair, I can just provide a brief background while you're
Please.
here. The license received a state violation of the liquor code on February 3rd, 2025 for sale to a 17-year-old underage operative and is not eligible for administrative approval. The stipulation agreement and order was attached in the board's backup. This is the applicant's second violation within a 2-year period. The first violation occurred on October 10th, 2023. The applicant has met all statutory and policy filing requirements, and no adverse comments have been received from the sheriff's investigator.
Okay. I'll ask the applicant if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Vince Linden. I'm an attorney for the applicant. I was engaged by the applicant for this purpose. I've had discussions with the county attorney that was handling the matter initially, as well as the Ms. Allred, the clerk to the board. Standing at the podium to my left is Bador Batari. I didn't know if I was pronouncing his name correctly. Mr. Batari and his sister-in-law purchased the store more than 2 years ago. And as the clerk indicated, they did have a violation within a few months of purchasing the store. The violation was by an employee that was an 8-year employee of the store. So when they purchased the store, turned around and had an immediate sale from an employee that had worked for the store for 8 years, had been through the certified tips training program previously, was a good employee, had never had a sale to a minor before. It was a 58-year-old woman. They talked to her about firing her at the time. She requested that she not be fired, indicated that she would never do this again. I've practiced liquor licensing. I think the clerk to the board and your county attorney can attest to this. I've been in the liquor licensing industry in some capacity and for 30 years. And when I first started and was a young prosecutor, the initial reaction or expectation from a liquor licensing authority would be to dismiss or terminate the employee that committed the offense, particularly an offense for sale to a minor. And then through the years, there would be training programs and the severe penalties involved in selling to a minor. So if we could stay with the first violation that the employee committed, not only did the company have to appear before you, as we are today, seeking a renewal, but the person that made the sale to the minor was criminally charged and had to appear in El Paso County District Court for a criminal offense of selling to a minor. She was required to again attend a formal training program to perform community service and pay a fine. And in speaking with her, I didn't speak with her at the time, but Bador, the owner, did speak with her, and given her age and given her long experience at the store and the trauma of being charged criminally for the first time in your life and going through that process, believed that she would never do this again. And in my experience, most people that sell to a minor and have to go through that process, particularly people that have never had an experience with law enforcement before, never do it again. And they actually usually turn out to be fantastic employees because they understand the ramifications and the potential penalties of what could occur, not only to the person that purchases the alcohol underage, because you go through the training programs, you see all the videos, you listen to all the stories of what can occur to a sale to a minor. But personally, it damages your own professional record because now you walk around with a criminal charge on your record. At any rate, approximately a year later, the same person sold to a minor again in a sting operation that was conducted by the state of Colorado. She was at that point in time immediately terminated. The company took all 7 of its employees, 5 of whom were family members. I met Bador, his brother, his wife, his brother's wife at their home this past weekend to talk about what was going on here. I had talked to them on the phone before that. I had spoken with Ms. Sample, exchanged email communications, analysis of the law with the county attorney's office. And I can tell you that they're good people. They came to this community from New York. They purchased different liquor stores. They understand that the liquor stores have to be operated as distinct and independent stores. They don't qualify for multiple joint interests, but you are allowed as a family to own one in a spouse's name and one in your name. And so they've owned 3 stores between the 2 families. and they know how to operate a liquor store. I've requested and told them that if you were willing to renew it at least this one more year, that they have this system that we can ensure cannot be overridden, so that regardless of who it is, whether it's Bedour, whether it's his wife, whether it's his relative, if you come to the liquor store and you and I are, well, I'll speak for myself, I'm clearly over 50. So the law is you have to identify, you have to ask for an identification from a patron that appears to be under the age of 50. So someone like myself who appears to be 50, the law may not require you to ask for that identification card. I've asked that they stipulate that they will ask for identification cards from all patrons, whether they look 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and that no employee, the owner included, can override the system, so that the point of sale system will require a valid Colorado or a valid state driver's license, or one of the other valid forms of identification. Could have a state ID in order to make the sale. That you cannot override the system. If you don't have an ID and it doesn't run through the point of sale system, the point of sale system will not allow that sale. That's about as much as we can do, other than putting in the 12 cameras, going to the certified tips training program, which is a 4-hour program. I know that the instructor that teaches that, he does a good job doing that. But in this instance, where it was the same employee, an employee that they inherited with the purchase of the store, that had worked there for 8 years, made a sale almost immediately after the purchase, pleaded not to be fired, begged and said that she would never do it again, I would believe that employee. Just in my experience, I would believe that employee. I used to counsel clients, you have to terminate. The licensing authority is going to want you to terminate. But I still believe that generally an employee, a good person who makes a mistake, and there are no excuses for selling to a minor. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. There are no excuses. That's like, of all the rules in the liquor code, of the inordinate things that you could do wrong, and the rules and statutes and codes and regulations, there's only one rule that you should care about. Don't sell to a minor. Don't sell to a minor. Don't sell to a minor. Don't sell to an intoxicated patron. Keep your books and records on site. Purchase from wholesale distributors. Don't sell below cost value. We could go through all of the different regulations, but the single most important one is don't sell to a minor, for obvious reasons. I would plead now on behalf of this applicant who has invested $700,000 in the store, who owes the SBA $450,000, who pays the landlord for some $1,000s a month, who has had all of the employees certified trained, who is convinced in talking with his family, they only have 2 employees that are not family members. The entire family was so scared. We met Saturday. The entire family wanted today to be the next day. They're so scared to be here because they understand the gravity of the situation, that you have the power to not renew their liquor license. Do you have questions from myself or the licensee? I should say before I close, Madam Chair, that this was a state sting, and so the state did its own investigation, its own stipulation. They did admit the violation. The employee was charged again. They paid a $6,800 fine, I believe. I think you have the record, and also a 4-day suspension to the state. Now they've felt compelled to hire an attorney. So there has been punishment that the state felt appropriate based on the state statutes and guidelines for enforcement activities. They have done that. This initially was scheduled for another penalty enforcement action until I talked to your representatives and said that I don't think that that's appropriate, that you can't have double jeopardy. I'm the one who told Ms. Allred what you can do in lieu of seeking to enforce the same crime twice or penalize the same crime twice. Is it benefits my client that I don't believe legally you're authorized to do that. They may have a different opinion, but the hearing was changed from an enforcement action type penalty to a renewal penalty, which is obviously, and I had to explain to my client, in my view, 1,000 times riskier. We could pay the county the fine that they're requesting, but that's not the proper procedure. That would cause litigation to incur because other attorneys and licensees would see that a local authority penalized an applicant twice for the same offense, and that would have caused inordinate litigation throughout the state had that been allowed to occur. However, it's much more serious because they can simply decide not to renew your license. My client can speak for himself. He's an educated man. He came here from New York. He worked for Goldman Sachs as a financial analyst, didn't like that lifestyle. His family moved out here. They've invested in our community. They've made 2 mistakes, but it was the same person who made that mistake. That person is no longer there. I don't think that the 2 violations indicate a systemic problem with the store. And I can assure you, as someone who's lived and practiced this law in this community for 35 years now, that they know the gravity of what's at stake. And if you would give them one more opportunity, you won't see me here again if there was a 3rd offense, because I know what the penalty will be. There's no negotiating, there's no pleading, there's no begging. But if you would just give them the one opportunity, I think they've removed the person who committed the 2 offenses, and I highly doubt that you will ever see them again. And if you did, then either at a renewal hearing or an enforcement hearing, you have full authority to revoke the license. They are very aware of that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we get clarification on his comment about legal question that he asked?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I think Mr. Linden and I would respectfully disagree as to whether or not this could be show caused. However, in this case, Terry Samples here, she's our liquor prosecutor. I'm walled off from those decisions. I think that she could probably speak to what her recommendation is on the outcome of today's hearing.
Ms. Sample?
Thank you. That would be great.
Good morning, Commissioners. Terry Sample, Senior County Attorney. I also respectfully disagree with their attorney. After speaking to the State Director of the Enforcement Division, Michelle Stone Principato, I believe her name is, she informed myself and the clerk of the board that there is no such thing as double jeopardy when it comes to the state and the local licensing authority. We could have went forward with the show cause hearing. However, I did make the decision after speaking to her and speaking to Sergeant Ma, which I believe you have the email in your packet, and he stated he was satisfied with the punishment process that this Mr. Bataray, what they went through in that process. So that's why I decided just to go forward with the renewal hearing.
Thank you. My question for the attorney for the liquor license renewal. Explain a little bit more about this point of sale terminal that you're talking about where it can be overridden. If no one has a proper ID, does it shut it down? Tell me how it's foolproof.
I'll have to let my client speak a little bit more to that, but just for your experience, I don't know if you had the occasion to purchase alcohol or not, but if you have before and you've been requested to provide an appropriate form of ID, then you'll note. I'll give you, I'm not going to name a name, but times that I've purchased alcohol, they can tell that I'm over 21, but their system requires the input of an ID. And so they don't take my ID. Sometimes the clerk will say, "How old are you?" And then they can punch the date of birth into the system and override the system without having it scan my physical ID to ensure that I've accurately informed you as to my date of birth. So if I was 20 years old and you were lazy and you didn't want to make me take my ID out of my pocket, and you wanted to override the system, you could either make up a date of birth or ask me for a date of birth and trust me on that and punch it in the system. And then that's called an override. So what I've instructed them to do is the security people that put the system in, I want it so that you have to present a physical ID. So one, if you don't have an ID, you can't make a sale because the point of sale system won't ring unless you're given a physical copy of the ID and that ID scans. So that's the difference between the current system and the system that most people utilize is a manager or a person in authority can come over and punch some buttons and override the system. We want it so that you cannot override the system and you cannot make a purchase without a physical copy of an ID that can be physically scanned by the machine to determine its validity. So they sell scanners that will determine the validity of all 50 states' IDs, in case you're from out of state, will determine the date of birth, will determine in itself if it's been modified or is a fake ID. And if it is, the system won't run, and that you can't override that process. If you can't get it to work, you have to discharge the sale.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
I just would like clarification that our decision today is going to impact the one store. You mentioned the family owns multiple locations and that these businesses are in different names. So is this decision today for a renewal of the license going to impact their other businesses, or is it tied specifically to this one location?
Tied specifically to this one location. So the enforcement activity, the hearing was originally set for an enforcement action. I disagree with the state director and your attorney, so we respectfully disagree. And we could debate whether or not that's accurate, but your decision will impact this licensee. So Cita Liquors Inc., DBA, is the only license that's at jeopardy today because the licenses have to be distinct and independent and they can't commingle funds. So whatever your decision is today will impact the store only.
Have their other locations run into issues similar to this?
The other two locations are governed by the City of Colorado Springs as the local licensing authority, but there have been no violations indicated.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Williams.
I'm curious, what happens if someone presents their driver's license and it's expired? Is that then they can't sell the liquor to them?
That's an excellent question. I actually don't know off the top of my head.
Your client's shaking his head, nope.
The system won't do it. So the answer to you is, maybe I misunderstood the question. The system won't permit it because it has to be a valid identification card. If you showed me your ID and you happen to want to purchase alcohol for someone else and your license was expired, I could say, Commissioner Williams, I know this is who you are, and I know you're over the age of 21. I'm going to let this sale go through, but you might want to get your license reinstated. But in the way that this system is going to work is if it's not a valid ID, and that would be one of the things that the scanner would check for. What is your date of birth? Is the ID active or valid? And if it's not, you can't make the sale.
And then again, just do the current employees of the store now know? Family members and employees who are not family members that violations will result in immediate termination? Or what is your procedure now if there's a violation? Let's say your nephew sells or something. What is your procedure? And the client can step to the mic and answer this for what happens, you know, if someone in the store does sell. And I don't think it's going to happen again, but.
So in this case, we told all of the employees we also gave a training to them, and then we had a training certificate also. I think it's on the file. Right?
She wants to know
Oh,
if
okay.
it happens again.
So they all knows, and then we are also in such a pain, honestly. Now we told all of them, if any cases happens, I'm sure 99.9% it will not happen because of the register, the POS system we created now. And they all knows if anything happens, even if it is my wife, there's no, and we're gonna fire them. It doesn't matter, whoever it is, I promise. Before we gave a chance to the lady, her name was Zelda Morris, and she was 50 years old lady. We gave her a chance once, and same person committed the same mistake. At the end of the day, I have to face all this situation. I'm in this situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I want to just get the details on the record of this system because you've said the system, how it's going to work. And so I want to be clear. Is that system in place today? And will that system be utilized for every single sale going forth today? Yes. Okay. If you, and then, and just to be clear, so then each one of the IDs is scanned and is validated by the machine. And if the ID cannot be validated, then the sale cannot continue, just so I understand how that is working. Okay. Okay. Other questions? Okay, comments or I think we are prepared for a motion if someone is ready to make a motion.
So we don't have to go through the formal questions and answers here. Okay.
This was not eligible for an abbreviated hearing because of
Okay.
the violation,
all right.
so no.
So I will say that my comment is the important thing is that you've taken the steps necessary with your family, even if they end up on my least favorite job would be bathroom duty, you know, that they can no longer work the desk. I think the most important thing is you've taken the steps to prevent it from happening in the future, which would be the immediate termination. Obviously, you've invested a lot of money into this business. It is very, very serious to have a violation on your liquor license. I asked the driver's license question because several years ago, as a money-saving feature, the Department of Revenue stopped sending out driver's license renewal notices. So you literally have to calendar the date if you want to make sure you're not driving around with an expired driver's license. So they stopped renewing those sending those mailings out several years ago, and that's why I suspect you would probably get several expired driver's licenses. But I think the important thing is that you keep with the training current, and that if there's a violation, that the employee is fired or not allowed to participate in the family business in any way, because you know. There's a lot of money invested into this business, and I think that becomes very hard. And you know, personally, I will say I am not in the business of shutting a business down, but I don't want to see this happen again and come in front of our board if it's your business or an associated business. So thank you.
I'll just add a few comments as well. I agree and I appreciate the gravity of the situation, and I appreciate your understanding of the gravity of the situation. As a mom of a 17-year-old, it hits pretty close to home. I want to make sure that we have business owners in our community who are going to make sure that my son and everyone else's child is protected in these situations, because it can be deadly. And we know that, and we know it's incredibly serious. Given the specifics of this situation, it's unfortunate. Sometimes our compassion leads us down a road we didn't think it was going to lead it down, but I can understand your desire to show compassion to an employee that you thought had learned a valuable lesson. I'm still concerned about this, but I think with the ID scanning and in place, I agree with you. I don't think that there would be a future renewal, certainly not from me if this were to continue. But I do believe that with the things that are in place, the understanding of the gravity of the situation and the specifics of this case being that same individual, and knowing that moving forward, it's very clear to all of your employees that there is no opportunity for this to happen again, that I am comfortable at this point. But this is in District 4, so I will ask the resident commissioner if you would be, if you'd like to make the motion.
Like to make a motion to renew the application for City Liquors Incorporated for Spirit House Liquors located at 6 Whitefield Boulevard.
And I will second that motion.
Are there any other comments by commissioners before we move forward?
I'll just say that I appreciate the steps you've taken in knowing that you've established the use of this machine and will expect your employees to always scan the ID. That is my expectation. And I can appreciate that you did take a risk on that employee, and it's unfortunate that it happened again. But I think it sounds as though you've put some parameters in place to make sure that your business going forward is abiding by the law.
Okay, I will call the roll. Commissioner Weissong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate.
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. And I hope that we will see much responsibility and safety for our community moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you.
Okay, we are on to item 11.
Item number 11 is department and committee reports, non-action items. 11A, quarterly sales and use tax report 2025, quarter 2, April, May, and June. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you for being ready to present. Ms. Simmons, we look forward to it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer. Here this morning to present the sales and use tax for June 2025. And as I say every time I present this, but for anyone who's listening for the first time, this is the most current financial information we have with sales and use tax collection. So this is the consumer activity that happened during the month of June that was remitted to the Colorado Department of Revenue during the month of July, which is then given to the county during August. So we're always 2 months in arrears on our sales tax. So that's why it seems like it's late, but it's really not. So through June, I know that this has been a big topic of conversation because across the state, we are seeing sales tax declines in over half of the counties in the state are actually seeing actual declines in tax. And that's not just in comparison to their budget, it's actual year over year declines. And so And obviously, sales tax makes up about 60% of our unrestricted budget. So 60% of our overall discretionary revenue comes in through sales and use tax collections. The other third is property tax, and then about 10% is fees, fines, other sources of revenue. So when we look at this, this is the revenue that is collected through the Colorado Department of Revenue, and this is primarily all of the retail component for the month. This has declined year over year by it's basically flat, 0.02% year to date, down 0.67% for the month of June. And then when we add in use tax on automobiles, which is down about 2.2% for the year to date, and then use tax on building materials collected primarily through regional building as well as direct collections through the county. That saw a huge month for the month of July, one of the higher months that we've seen in a long time. So we're up 37% year to date. So when we put everything together, we are up 0.45%. So we are not hitting budgeted projections, but we are slightly over where we were at this point last year. So when we look at our budget, we are actually right now shy of budget by about $1.9 million. If our sales tax continues to come in on this same trend, we'll be shy of budget by about $6 million for the year. That being said, you've heard me say consistently that we are not experiencing a revenue shortfall overall at the county. While this isn't a budget presentation, I want to make sure that this is part of the presentation in that the budget we went in with for the year, we made very strong recommendations to make sure it was recession resistant. So we conservatively budgeted other areas of revenue. And while the sales tax is not coming in as strong as we had anticipated, the other revenues are coming in stronger. And so when you see the next budget report, you'll note that we're still exceeding by about $2 million our overall revenue forecasts in all categories. But sales and use tax is planned to be behind budget. We have incorporated these items into our forecasting for our 2026 budget and continue to feel that we're operating a sustainable budget with no need for any sort of reductions at this point. So the only thing that I would add is these are publicly available. Sorry, I clicked on something I wasn't supposed to. Publicly available on our website to go through. One of the things that is out there is what we call attachment A. It's just the attachment to the sales and use tax presentations. And in this presentation are details about those state collected industries. I apologize, I'm trying to click and nothing's working. Okay, there we go. Those state collected funds and by industry. And so retail is typically most things that you think of as just your general shopping, up 0.8% for the year, but down 3% for the month of June. Food services. One huge thing that you'll see is in the month of June, we had a 35% increase year over year of accommodation sales tax. That talked to a couple local economists as well as the city and their LART area, and that was strongly tied to the Senior Open and the hotels, the vacancy rates in hotels during that time. There was a very strong attendance and strong economic activity. So just wanted to point that out and then say that this is out there. If there's any additional questions, this all leads into that whole, the first page of the first report that I did where it's the Colorado Department of Revenue collected taxes. Are there any questions for me on June sales and use tax?
Commissioner Nelson.
Just one quick question. Can you give me an example of what the other revenues that are coming in higher?
Yeah, so off the top of my head, the one that's there's two that are the primary portions of it. One is interest revenue, and that we did on purpose when we did the budget. We focused on lower interest budget because if sales and use tax was going up, that at the time that the Fed would most likely drop interest rates. So the two things kind of balance each other out. So that's not accidental that one it just went the other way than we anticipated, but we kind of planned for that. The other is the clerk and recorder's office. The primary portion of the revenues that we retain at the county from the clerk and recorder's office are from their recording department, and their recording department has seen significant increased activity over the past 6 months than they have seen in prior years. We are getting to levels we haven't seen in the clerk and recorder's office since 2020 and 2021. And then once interest rates really moved up there, then the activity in that office drops significantly because people aren't refinancing mortgages, things like that, that require the recording department. So now that even when now rates are dropping 1/4% or 0.5%, people start refinancing their home loans that they got during the height of the mortgage rates.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Commissioner Wesson.
You said that through June, we're about 1.9 million below expectations. And I think I heard you say that it could be $6 million by the end of the year.
Correct.
So you're projecting even lower sales tax revenues for the next 6 months?
Not necessarily. So the difference is in the way that the budget is spread for the year. And there's a whole lot of ways that we could do that. And there's never a correct way. We look at 5-year averages, 4, 3, and 2-year averages of like what percentage came in what month. So it's not a linear amount. So if you take right now we're coming in just shy of 1% over budget, or 1% over last year to date. If you take that projection and say we're going to come in at that 1% number, we will be shy $6 million from budget. And it's based on the budget for the rest of the year is loaded a little higher than the beginning of the year was. If we would have done a 2-year average, we would actually have seen a little bit more of that difference in the beginning of the year, but still the same net amount at the end of the year. Does that make sense? Took me a little bit to wrap my head around that because I'm like, why is this variance going to be more at the end of the year? But no, I don't expect the percentage to go down for the rest of the year. It's just how much we loaded in the budget for each one of those months.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Okay, just because we're having a lot of conversation at the state level about what's going on with our budget, and I know the city is also having those conversations, can you just sort of state plainly the county's budget and where it's at?
Absolutely. So the county's budget, based on how we budgeted for the year, I feel like we're in a strong position to continue to operate as we budgeted. We're not recommending any sort of budget decreases through departments. We're not recommending cutting anything. I know certain counties are on hiring freezes, layoffs, furloughs. We are not recommending anything like that because of the way that we put in the budget. We specifically wanted to ensure that anything that we did was sustainable over the next several years, even in uncertain economic conditions. We are in a place where we can continue to operate our budget. And obviously the budget planning for 2026 is still in progress. And so I don't want to make any promises because we are still monitoring sales tax activity very closely. But at this point in our planning, we still feel like we are in a good spot to maintain our base budget going into 2026.
Okay, thank you. And just great work on
I appreciate
getting our
that.
county in a good place. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, we're getting a lot of questions from staff. They are hearing across the state. You've heard about Denver and other counties doing layoffs and wondering, because obviously when there's a sales tax decline, that affects all of the state. It's not just one city that usually experiences it at the same time. But I believe our projections were conservative enough. And that's been our approach to budgeting. Also, our county administration approach to the preliminary budgets have been making sure that we didn't utilize ongoing expenses to do projects or things like that, not hiring on employees that we weren't certain could be sustained through uncertain economic times.
I appreciate that focus on sustainability. Good work.
Vice Chair Williams.
Yes, I think the important thing here to stress We work really hard, and I remember the headlines from last year's news. We called it, I think, a recession-resistant budget, and that was the headline in the Gazette. And I know we always start at 0%, so our base budget starts at 0. And we work really hard to be very conservative on our projections on sales tax. And because, as we often say, well, our crystal ball's been broken for many years. We don't want to be overly optimistic because then we do face substantial cuts that many other governments are facing. I think our advantage here that we have as we see the sales and use tax report is a lot of our budget, and maybe you can answer this for me, how much of our budget is actually the property tax? Because we get the property tax and then there's the sales tax as well.
So about 30% of our non-grant related revenue, so our local taxes, is property tax. About 60% is sales tax, and then 10% is those other fees and charges.
Yes, and I think when you're comparing, if you look at what's happening at cities, the city of Colorado Springs primarily coming to mind, is that they are primarily sales tax. They don't get very much in property tax at all. Their highway user tax fund is at 0.33 mils because we've cut that way down long ago. And so theirs is primarily sales tax. So when they see this dip in sales tax revenue, which I personally, by the way, am trying to do my best to prevent, and so when they see this dip in sales tax revenue, it can be very scary. And I know it's scary for our employees too, but please know that we've budgeted conservatively. We're working hard. We have a close eye on it. And we work really hard to make sure that, we'll watch on our budget next year too. I'm not seeing, we're seeing a dip, but I'm not seeing the same concern that I feel like the city of Colorado Springs has. And so I think that's really important to state.
Commissioner, if I could add two things that I should have mentioned earlier. Another thing that we have done is intentionally built our reserves to very healthy levels. So that makes us confident of our ability to withstand any sort of temporary reduction with the natural economy. The other thing, I just forgot it. I want to make sure that I'm clear that while we're in a comfortable position with our current budget, we are very closely monitoring things that are happening at the state and federal level, and specifically the special session and how any possible human services costs might be passed to the county. So I don't want to put a perception out there that we can absorb those. That is not the case. Those would be giant ongoing costs that are not part of our budget, and we're very closely monitoring that and advocating at that level. But those are not part of our current budget projections.
Yes, so essentially we built our reserve to a healthy level to cover one-time expenses or even something such as having to build courtrooms, not to rescue the state from their problems. So again, we'll go back to the state legislature and we'll make sure they know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just also add my thanks for the tremendous work. I appreciate you bringing up that, there have been questions employees are asking because they're hearing these things across the state. They're hearing that. That's a really good thing for us to be aware of. And while, to your point, we plan for what we know we can plan for, but if there are things that come out that are, emergencies or those type of things, we have very healthy reserves, but the state shifting any kind of huge burdens down on us would affect us. That's always going to be the case, but we've planned to the very best of our ability, and I feel very comfortable with where we are based on that. And it does matter when we take a conservative approach, when we do not grow government past what we know is sustainable, it matters. And it's a confirmation for, I think, probably all of us sitting up here, that it does matter when we have to take a hard line and say, we're not comfortable extending past, we're not going to provide services that are an overextension. We want to be very intentional about making sure that our core services are taken care of, that we are not extending past the appropriate role of government. so that we don't end up having to do those pullbacks. And again, we all know that there's no crystal ball here, but I'm very happy with where we are today. That's a huge testament not only to the board's philosophy on good governance, but also, of course, to our county administrator and to you and your entire team for taking that and making it reality as the experts at the county and making sure that policy can be followed through on. So just really incredibly grateful for the entire team here. And we're going to continue to watch this closely, I know, but it is wonderful to be able to say to the taxpayers, we are accountable, we've heard you, we know what you've wanted, and we are doing our very best with each one of those dollars. We're not going to overextend ourselves. So it certainly makes it easier for us to sleep at night, knowing what we are doing the best that we can with what our taxpayers have authorized and expect us to do here as policymakers. So thank you very much. Okay. I think we are on to 11B.
11B is the El Paso County Fair Post-Fair Report. Todd Martz, Executive Director, El Paso County Parks and Community Services, and Teresa Odello, Recreation and Cultural Services Division Manager, Community Services Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to speak for a little bit. I've got the real brains with me that will answer some questions if you have it. And then Teresa Odello has an injury. Oh, she's going to hobble down. So we're here if you have any questions afterwards. But just want to kind of give you a quick overview of the county fair. I think a lot of you are already aware, but let me give you some numbers. Our fair overview, and one thing I think is important, we're celebrating 120 years. How cool is that? This fair's been around for 120 years, and it's been established, and it's supported by the community and by all of you. So very proud of that. We did base it on the Potato Festival, so we did have a great theme called Spectacular Journey. These are our numbers. Our goals are always 25, 80, and 250, but our attendance exceeded that with 31,000. Sponsorship, Dana did a wonderful job, and the team 112,000, and then revenue overall was 358. So exceeded our revenue goals and will provide a great budget and a base thing for us to use in the future. You can see where we're at with our goal and attendance on a graph. We were above last year, and we did have a record year in 23 with some of our attendance, but we're going back up again. And for a year that's been really tough, you talk to some of the other venues in the state, and their attendance is a little bit lower. So the fact that we went up, we're very proud of that. The fair impact. This is something I think is critical for me to point out, and really our Public Information Office and the fair team are the reason this is successful. 63.7 million impressions and 1.7 million publicity value. It really is a priceless thing that we put together. And I was at an event the other day, and I asked them if they had been to the county fair, and they said no, but they smiled. And because they remembered the times that they have been to a county fair. And I think about those impressions that we're giving, even if they did not attend the county fair, they remember what a county fair is about and why they have it and the memories they have. And so hopefully it's a great memory and also a good thought about El Paso County every time they think about the county fair. The Fair Partnerships is critical for us too. They put together a wonderful brochure that we shared with all of our sponsors, and I think it really is just taking it to that next level. We used to just send them an email or a letter. Now they put together this real professional brochure that shows them, here's the impressions that we made on your behalf and where you got some publicity and you're supporting our county fair. You can see that in 2025, we gained 5 new partners. I mentioned the 112,000, but even more than that is the 150,000 of in-kind. Those folks that are out there and helping us with the county fair and giving their time, resources, and materials to make it happen are critical. Here's a a summary of the fair sponsorships, the monetary and in-kind. And for those of you that can see all the names on there, I encourage you to thank them if you use their businesses, and make sure that we are acknowledging that their support is how we can carry on with the county fair. The fair programming this year in youth development. I had a couple questions earlier about youth development and what does the county fair do for them? And it really is, I don't want to be, it's priceless what the county fair does for some of these youth. We had 273 exhibitors, 1,595 fair entries, 656 animals. A survey of 111 4-H youth showed that 92% believe 4-H is a place where you get to teach others what you learned, you get to do things, you're encouraged to plan for your future, and you get a chance to be a leader and help your community. I've been honored to look at the applications for 4-H scholarships for many years, and when you read these scholarship announcements or nominations for these kids, they really are an exceptional group. We are honored to have one representative from CSU Extension today. Shauna Lamoth joined us. The others are very busy at the county or at the state fair right now. But they wanted to be here today if they could have. Barn tours is something else we added this year, and I'll just highlight that. I was walking around the fairgrounds, and I just kind of followed behind one of these barn tours. And what they did was they had staff and some of the 4-H youth giving tours of the barns for us city folks, kind of teaching them about what they do, what do they put into those animals, and their projects. Very good interactive tours, and something we'll continue to grow. And
Todd,
last, yes.
I'm so sorry. I just want a question about that because I didn't get to follow along with one of the tours, but I think that's just truly fantastic. Is to help with that education. I'm hoping that if we're not already at the end of those tours, there's an opportunity to say to those folks, and if you are interested in getting more involved with 4-H, here's how you sign up.
They really do. Yeah, I mean, the purpose was not to recruit, but when you start to tell them about these things they're doing, if you're a parent and you're going along with them or a grandparent, you're going to say, you know what, I think that'd be a great thing for my kids to be involved in. And so absolutely, it was part of the conversation. I don't know if they recruited any. I'll find out.
Yeah, sometimes I think, especially if you don't already belong belong in a rural community or aren't familiar with 4-H, you don't really know how to get involved. And so having that invitation really to say, we can send you some information, I just think is a really great way of making sure they know you can be involved too, you can be included. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
And I said barn tours, but they did more than just that. They also talked about all the art, the fashion, the tabletop. And so even if kids aren't able to have a goat in their backyard, they can do some of those other things that 4-H is critical for. So this is something that's absolutely not last or least. This is really very important, and I'm very proud that this is happening at the county fair. I think it's happened for quite a few years, but we don't always highlight it, and we really want to highlight this. So the youth participation in the livestock facilitated through the 4-H program and FFA had an opportunity to sell at the El Paso County Junior Livestock Sale, 119 lots sold for $402,000. And what's really neat is 6,000 pounds of protein. Everywhere they're stressing how important protein is these days. Well, there were 6,000 pounds of protein that was donated to the Springs Rescue Mission, equating to nearly $32,000 in value. So thank many of you for participating in the livestock sale and your support, and all of the businesses in the community that supported it. Please pass along our appreciation.
Just one comment.
Commissioner Williams?
I did find a few years ago that it's a very bad idea to go to the livestock sale when you're hungry. Very bad idea. So I'm glad that we were that successful on it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I personally want to just thank all of you commissioners for your support of the county fair and making sure that it's something that we've carried on and your predecessors for 120 years. And if we can visualize all these seats full, that literally is the people that are putting on the county fair. I've got some folks with me today on Shauna Aljets, the supervisor there for programming. I've got Dana Nordstrom with for sponsorship, and Shauna with CSU Extension, and Teresa. But if you imagine all the other staff, we'd fill a couple rows, and then you take all the the volunteers like the Fair Advisory Board, the Livestock Committee and all those groups, they would fill a section, and then you fill the rest of it with all the other groups throughout the community. 4-H parents, they give dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of hours to support these programs. And so visualize this whole room full. That's why we have a county fair. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you all next year. Any questions for me or the brains?
Vice Chair Williams.
I just have one more comment. Well, two. Thank you to our county fair queen. She did a fantastic job. We did pave the road this year, didn't we?
It's wonderful. Yes, I went out of my way just so I could drive on that road every time.
It is beautiful. It is fantastic. After I went to the state fair, they haven't paved their parking lot for probably 20 years. And so thank you very much. I know that the residents, especially in Callahan, appreciated that being paved, but also so did that's probably why our attendance went up.
It might have been. It'll go up again next year. We're pretty proud of that road. Any other questions?
Commissioner Applegate.
I was mostly just comments, not really questions, but I was going to say, just keep doing what you're doing and just up it every year. I mean, seriously, see if you can bring in bigger names. I mean, for performers and stuff. So, and I very well enjoyed it. I felt bad that I missed it the first weekend because I was in Philadelphia. I was trying to do the stuff with the NACO conference, but when I finally got out there Saturday, it was great. I got to walk around a little bit. I got to see the different vendors. I got VIP for the stock show. I got to go in the back where the 4-H kids, and they're lining up and they're going out and they're, doing the auction. It was pretty cool. I got to see the steer that got sold. That was the most expensive sale for the 4-H. They set a record. It was $17,000 or $18,000. They sold that steer for. I was like, that's unbelievable. So, and that, that farm and rancher is going to make a ton of money off that, just that one cow. So that's great. So, but it was really quite something. So just keep doing what you're doing. Let us know what support you need.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Nelson.
I have a couple comments and then a question. So the beauty of the fair is that it draws such a wide variety of people to come in, and then they're getting exposure to this whole different lifestyle. And so you have the carnival, and then you have the 4-H events, and it was so great to just speak with some of the kids about their passion and taking care of these animals, and that they've learned the sense of responsibility at such a young age and pride in work. And I know I got some pictures with some of the animals. I've heard that, goats get votes. And so, I took advantage of that mindset, and we'll hopefully be using some of those pictures later. But I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to speak with the students or the kids. And my own children really enjoyed the carnival rides. We spent both Saturdays out there during the fair, and so I'm grateful. But I also love the aspect of, can you go back? I think it was 2 slides, and the donation of the protein and the support to the rescue mission. That I was able to attend the Colorado Springs Rescue Mission barbecue. I guess it was not this past Friday, but the one before. And it was just an appreciation for the leaders of our community. And they had this barbecue and this event, and this protein for helping others was there. And it's amazing to see how we're able to serve our community through something like 4-H. It's just beautiful that our homeless are able to benefit, and that it's local helping local. And I think this program, helping to give an opportunity for children to bring their animals, demonstrate the work that they've been doing, and then that in turn is helping bless others in our community, is just beautiful. And so thank you to everyone that helped make this happen and were involved. And I know Todd and I were talking about during the demolition derby that maybe next year us commissioners are now going to be roped into doing the blindfold John Deere drive. That was pretty entertaining to watch couples have to navigate that. I said I would rather do that than the dunk tank. So no pressure, no commitment, but I'm just putting it out there that if I have to make a choice, that would be my preference. And then I would like for you to state, for those that want their children to be involved in 4-H, where can they go to get that information? Because it was really neat to be walking around with my parents, and my dad grew up in Kansas on a dairy wheat farm, and he was, of course, involved in 4-H. And then my mother was also a little bit involved in, especially my grandmother and my great grandmother and grandfather. And yet, my own kids and myself, I grew up in Colorado Springs. I'm a city girl, but I have roots to rural. And so I would love to have my own children have some exposure to this sort of a lifestyle. My son wants us to get chickens, and I do live in unincorporated, not in the city, just putting it out there, even though I'm in District 5. But yeah, I just haven't taken the plunge yet. So maybe 4-H is a way we could introduce him to that.
Absolutely. I'll share it with you. We'll send the email with you. But you also can go to our website. The extension has a wonderful website with contact information to really get them started. And I think the staff there are really prepared for that. So they get a call from a family. They know exactly the steps, get in touch with the leader. Sometimes they'll do more than that and just kind of give them the spectrum of 4-H. And so you can get that from the website.
The fair's website?
You can link to the fair website over to it, or you can go to CSU Extension.
Okay.
I think that's probably the best way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
We're also having an open house.
Okay.
Go ahead. When? Thank you. October 10th at the CSU Extension office, we are doing an open house where people can come and learn about the program. So,
Okay, hopefully.
good job there.
Hopefully we'll have an invitation as the commissioners to attend and then help spread the word on that event and getting
Done.
it out even to schools in the community, especially in the city schools of,
Okay.
hey, come learn a little bit more about your rural opportunities. Thank you.
You may.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson, I just wanted to address that specifically. A new addition to the CSU staff this year has been Jen Lowen, who is the tabletop coordinator, but she has a huge heart for getting out into schools and really reaching new communities. She's the one that led our barn tours. She also did an ag, I think we called it Ag Day, back in March, but they invited D11 schools out for a day of education and exposure. So I know that is something she wants to continue to grow and work on. So we've had a really great year in our partnership as far as developing and really growing the 4-H word to people that are not in the rural community. So we're really excited about what that might look like in the future. So sorry.
No, you told you the brains right there. Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think that's a great thing for us to highlight here in the public venue and also to make sure that we're getting that word out. So thanks.
Commissioner Weissong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure that you exceeded your revenue goals because 2 of the county commissioners here participated in the dunk tank.
It was very popular. Yes. Yeah. It was social media was a fire with that.
So the gauntlet needs to be thrown that we need to figure out how we can, take that and whether it's the blindfolded John Deere exercise, what have you, but get a lot of additional members of the management of the county and, some kind of fire district and sheriff office, try to do some friendly competition to raise some money for, a good cause out there.
Thank you for participating.
I will just say, of course, I love the fair. I'm so grateful for all the work that goes into it from all of you and all the staff members at the county that work with you, and also our volunteers. I know they are such a huge part of this. And thank you. The presentation was wonderful. Really appreciate the being able to see, especially this slide. So thank you for highlighting that, because it's one of my favorite things. I always say this is a great way. We just talked about earlier today, the divide that is in our state, that we sometimes don't feel that our rural areas and our agricultural communities are respected by a lot of our state government. And so we love to be the model for how we want to do that differently. And this connection between the urban and the rural, I just think is fantastic. I've not yet talked to anyone about this or had anyone see more about this and not feel exactly the way Commissioner Nelson described. It's just this is just incredible. It's just such a really unique thing. And it's also a reminder of so much about who we are as a community, that while we are adjacent to this, it's not us. It's a nonprofit, multiple nonprofit organizations working together to create solutions for our community. And that is absolutely beautiful. That it's just we get to have a little bit of a hand of the facilitating through that fair process. So I really appreciate the emphasis and supporting that. The impressions I thought was great. You're right. Not everyone will attend the fair, but it's great to keep it front of mind for them what agricultural means to our community, that we do support it. And maybe one day they do decide to join us. Maybe it's not every year. But so really, really appreciate the work on this. And I too look forward to just seeing the entire fair grow and become even more impactful and reach more people in our community. Love the Ag Day, so great job on that. And just really good to see, as I said, I know that it can be tough for some folks who live in the city, aren't familiar, to go, gosh, I don't even know how you would even get involved in this, or even understand that there are those tabletop projects. I know that the extension has talked for quite a while around, figuring out a way. So maybe, and I think I passed that responsibility on to you, Lauren. But which is great with your connection with D11 in the past as well, and working with kids. But how do we get more kids in the city involved when they don't have a way to necessarily raise an animal, but they can't do those tabletop exercises? But what happens if they want to raise an animal and they don't have that right in their backyard? Are there ways that we can all work together? So I can just continue to see that we have a passion for agriculture in our community. I always think, we have parks, but there's this whole other big thing that we have out there that is really unique. And we do a good job of trying to serve both the urban and our rural communities in regards to how this operates. So again, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And we just look forward to continually improving it every year.
Thank you. We have a very brief video. If you would like us, we could show that.
Absolutely.
1,000 words are in this video. So Blake, can we run that real quick?
Not finished yet.
One more time.
Great job. Great job on the fair. Great job on the production of the video. That really does tell the story. Vice Chair Williams.
You might double your revenue if you shoot the commissioners out of the cannon. I just couldn't resist that one.
Well,
Sorry.
and on that, I want to say I have done the backseat driver blindfolded competition. My entire family has done it. It was scary, including some of my teenage sons trying to give me directions, but a whole lot of fun. So I agree. I don't mind the dunk tank, but we've done it a few years. If we decide to go and do the backseat driver competition, that is a really tremendous event as well. So, but thank you. Any last minute comments? We all can't help it after that video. We have more to say.
Yeah, I said whatever you need, Todd. So let me know next year. So let me know. You want to shoot me out the cannon? You want to do a dunk tank? Let me know.
And if you have like a picture of Mad Chad juggling chainsaws that are running, that was insane.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it was a crazy story that he shared that he was going to be in a commercial and they told him he would be juggling chainsaws. And so he was learning how to do this and he shows up and they're like, oh no, we're just going to like splice in the sound. You don't actually have to juggle live chainsaws, but he took the time to learn how to do it. And now it's part of his show. And whoa, my son couldn't get enough of it. So it was great. I hope he doesn't really want to like do that himself someday, but he was very entertained.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to do a check-in really quickly because we are at 10:42. If we need to do a 5-minute quick restroom break, it seems that way. So we'll just do a quick 5-minute break. We'll be back. Okay, we are returning from a brief recess and we are on item 11C.
11C is the acknowledgement of an annexation impact report for the County Line Annexation Number 1 through 3, Buc-ee's. Pursuant to state statute, the Board of County Commissioners does not approve or deny an annexation impact report. The report provided by the Town of Palmer Lake notifies the county of the annexation request and describes potential impacts in very general terms. The property is approximately 24.9 acres, located at the southwest corner of Interstate 25 and County Line Road interchange, and is currently split zone CC Commercial Community and C1 Commercial Obsolete within unincorporated El Paso County. Justin Kilgore, Planning Division Manager, Planning and Community Development.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is the Annex 253. It's also known as the Buc-ee's Town of Palmer Lake annexation. Your staff for this project, Planning Community Development, and Gilbert LaForce with DPW. The request is for the acknowledgement of a annexation impact report. The total annexation is 41.23 acres. 16.46 of that is right-of-way, and 24.77 is private property. We received a annexation impact report to the department in May of 2025. The report is required to be submitted at least 25 days before the established hearing. The scheduled hearing for this is August 28th, 2025, before the Board of Trustees.
Vice Chair Williams.
Sorry, Justin, I have a question already.
Yes, ma'am.
Considering that I don't know if we are aware, we might not be, that the Planning Commission at Palmer Lake did not rule on this issue. Is it still scheduled for this week?
As far as staff knows, yes, ma'am, it is. I did attempt to reach out to them just this morning to double check and verify. I haven't seen any updates on their website, nor have been in contact with anyone.
Okay, and then at the end of this, I'm also going to ask if we believe all of the requirements in the report has been met. So, but keep going. Thank you.
Before you is the Colorado Revised Statute on the annexation report. And I can flip through these if you like, Madam Chair. The annexation impact report requirements. The standards for the review of the annexation impact report. And the notice of public hearing. The proposed annexation includes 2 parcels of private property. They're located along County Line Road and Beacon Light Road, and the right-of-way extends, and I have a picture of that. If annexed into the Town of Palmer Lake, the properties will be rezoned to the Town of Palmer Lake PUD zoning, their PUD. The proposed travel center is approximately 75,000 square feet, 40 feet in height. Travel center will provide 120 gas station fueling positions and approximately 800 parking spaces. Town of Palmer Lake Fire will be providing governmental services, including emergency services, water. Monument Sanitation District will be providing the centralized services. Black Hills Energy is natural gas, and MVEA is electrical. The following are the annexation plats and some of the maps that were provided. This is one of the right-of-way. Another of the right-of-way leading up to the property here, these 2 pieces. The annexation area itself. If you look right below the vicinity map, you will see, can y'all see my pointer? I'm sorry. The incorporated limits of Palmer Lake start here. This is the rough line right here. This is the right-of-way that is being requested to be annexed, and this is the property itself. And then the following map is, there we go. The northern parcel here and the southern one here. So here are the CRS sections that gives the county the legal authority to hear the annexation impact report, and the LDC section for annexation procedures. And I'm here to answer any planning questions, and I believe the county engineer, Mr. Josh Palmer, is here to answer any engineering questions.
Vice Chair Williams.
Looks like I get to go first. I'm going to need Josh down here. So this is in my district, although then it will go to Commissioner Weissong's. This issue is not, no publicity at all on this, I've noticed. When they say in the annexation agreement that the roads, additional roadway improvements, developer will design, construct, and attain and bring them up to county standards. I assume that they're planning on paving Beacon Light Road.
Excuse me, that's correct. So we have funding and design for the voter-approved project through PPRTA2 that goes from County Line all the way down to Wakanda. We've separated this into two projects to pull out the section of Beacon Light and County Line Road that would be required to be improved by the developer if this was successful. So we have a second phase that is yet to start pending the results of this annexation. So the expectation is, based on some of the preliminary plans that we've seen, is they would indeed pave their portion of Beacon Light Road and make improvements to that intersection.
And County Line Road all the way to Palmer Lake?
No, the limits of impact for this project are probably about a couple 100 feet of County Line west of Beacon Light Road.
So as you are aware, we've had different standards for our paved roads over the year. They're very fantastic now. I just worry how much of County Line is going to, I mean, if people left the Buc-ee's and went through Palmer Lake, which I'm not expecting that the traffic study indicates there's a lot of cars going that way. How much is this going to affect our road, and should we require them to also annex the road?
So my understanding is the annexation, it would be required for them to annex all of County Line Road as well.
Okay.
So even though the limits of the project did not include County Line Road itself would then become owned and maintained by Palmer Lake.
Okay. And then now I have questions for the planning department. Thank you. Justin. So
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
my understanding if you go to a Buc-ee's first, it's not allowed for semi-trailers or semi-trucks to go in there. Is that, are you aware of that?
I don't have an answer for you on that, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I know, that's what I've been told by everybody, so I think that's correct. And the lighting standards. My residents in Woodmore particularly, I will tell you, the residents in unincorporated El Paso County, just to the west of Beacon Light Road, are really worried about the lights. And we drove by the Buc-ee's in Longmont late at night on a Sunday night, and we got the sense that they dimmed their lights a little bit at night. But how is the lighting standards for this? Are you aware of that level of lighting standards?
No, ma'am. I believe that would be subject to their annexation agreement with the town. However, when staff reviewed the annexation impact report, we did provide recommendations based on our own LDC on lighting, signage, and landscaping.
Okay. And these questions are just primarily for the record. I'm hoping that they will be considered at Palmer Lake. Is there going to be an effort? I have several roads, Furrow, Roller Coaster, Monument Hill Road, a bunch of roads that in the past, when we've had problems on, or especially when we were doing the gap, that cars would go and navigate these roads in Woodmore or all the way over to Furrow, even all the way over to Roller Coaster Road. And cars, but more particularly trucks, which I don't know as if the semi-trucks can actually go into the Buc-ee's, would go through neighborhoods onto icy roads and make a worse situation than there would have been if they would have just tried to go down Monument Hill. Do we know what kind of efforts we're going to make to keep all of the extra traffic off of our roads other than I-25?
Ma'am, I think I'm going to have to defer to DPW on that one.
I know,
Sorry.
I have a lot of tough questions.
So generally, we don't restrict traffic regardless of where it originates or what the destination is.
Well,
However,
we can't, really.
we can't, and even practically speaking, it's hard to, well, ultimately it's hard to enforce, really. But we do have options and tools where we could monitor and restrict if we deem there to be a safety concern. So that would be our primary focus, was if there was a safety or an operational issue that we'd have to address.
So, it's my hope, I guess, if they come to the Buc-ee's, they stay at the Buc-ee's until the I-25 clears up, so that then they could, not go down our local roads.
Correct, yeah, and we would do our best to work with Palmer Lake and to work with the engineers and to provide comments and recommendations as far as traffic circulation, traffic control during construction, detours, routing options, things like that. But we would focus on safety and operations and work with Palmer Lake as best as we could to provide recommendations and appropriate options.
And do we think any of that traffic is going to go down Beacon Light Road, which,
Based on the projections that I've seen, they anticipate a majority of the traffic entering and exiting at I-25. So not a significant portion would be going into or out of Palmer Lake or coming down Beacon Light Road again. As we go through the process, as the process progresses through preliminary design, ultimate design, I would expect there would be updates to the traffic impact study. Everything that we've seen is pretty preliminary at this point.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Applegate.
So this is a flagpole annexation, and they're following the 3-mile rule, correct? Town of Palmer Lake when they're annexing?
Yes, sir. The right-of-way annexation is less than 3 miles, sir.
Okay, that's all I was wondering. Thank you.
Commissioner Weisong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A number of questions. You both may want to stay up here. The annexation impact report made no reference about traffic. Is that normal? And the reason I'm asking is some of the traffic reports make reference of a certain number, but then there has been recommendations or comments that there's a tremendous amount of, it's been undersized. I don't know if there's anyone here on the Johnstown, if I remember correctly, that they have less than 500 parking spaces for clients. And we're putting 825 at this location, and they're using the same kind of traffic count. So things just don't add up. And when they don't add up, I'm just curious, how do we get some kind of response from either Town of Palmer Lake or Buc-ee's themselves to make sure that the information that they're providing is accurate?
Yes, sir. So I don't know how specific, and I may lean on the county attorney for this, sir, but how specific the report needs to be when submitted to the county. However, they did submit a traffic impact study to the department. And I believe that is what Mr. Palmer was referring to. So, sorry, I cut out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, I'd probably just echo what Mr. Kilgore told you. I believe under CRS 3112-108.5, I believe that the annexation impact report materials that we have meet statutory compliance. I'm not sure if that was the question, though.
If they meet the requirements, then I guess so.
Yeah, that was my question too, was if we felt that they had met the requirements on the annexation impact report. There is a 200-page traffic study in there, but it goes on for quite some time.
At the same time, some members of Palmer Lake commissioned their own analysis by Galloway, a third-party independent, looked at both traffic studies and found a number of less than stellar explanations. Like they didn't even include the Sunday traffic from the church. That's going to be right across the way. So that's why I'm asking the question, is that when there's, and this is in the record, that, you know, if statutorily they've met it, how do we potentially, again, they may annex that little portion, but we've got a lot of unincorporated parts of El Paso County around there that are still our constituents that we need to make sure that they're properly looked after. So that's why I'm kind of asking the questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind that, of course, there's only statutory impacts that have to be done through this. And, you know, we don't have the decision-making authority, which is where I think some of these questions really lie with Palmer Lake to make that decision, just like we would make them for our land use here. We have many more tools at our disposal. Our criteria is more detailed, but because they're just required to meet the annexation, which has been discussed, you know, sometimes there's frustrations around what our legal capabilities are around annexation, but I think a lot of the details will be up for decision in Palmer Lake. But to the point of our attorney, the statutory requirements have been made, though I think we can direct staff to continue to ask questions and work with the Palmer Lake staff for just the good of the community. I think that is something that we can certainly do, and we have done in the past, is just to continue those communications and work through any questions that will directly impact the county as an organization, which I think is primarily our focus here. And I don't think that we haven't really talked about this. We don't have any numbers that I'm aware of or projections, but as is the case with all of our county roads, there are always things that happen inside of the city that add, you know, the city votes on projects that will add people to Colorado Springs all of the time. That means likely there will be some impact to our roads because there are more people living here. And, you know, that's just a part of the natural cycles of city growth. We still don't get to weigh in on that. However, at the same point, if there were any major impacts, like, for example, County Line Road being fully annexed, that mitigates that traffic piece. But as we're talking about, you know, kind of more incidental traffic and things that'll go around, I do want to remind the commission that regardless, and this is not a statement about any kind of position on the project itself, anytime, whether that's a project in the city, more residents, a business in Colorado Springs, whether that or in Palmer Lake, we will receive sales tax revenue. And we will also receive property tax revenue that will come to the county as a result of that, which is a part of us being able to provide for any growth or things that are happening in the community, even though they're outside of that. So I think a lot of times I hear people say, well, why do we pay sales tax to the county if we live in the city? Well, that's why, because eventually you will drive out of the city and onto one of those county roads, and we still have to provide for those. So just as I don't think we have a projection on what those amounts will be, but my guess would be based on the report that the majority of those impacts are being taken care of with the annexation, it sounds like, through county line, and anything additional, those will be things that we can contemplate and potentially have additional revenue coming in from those sources down the road to deal with any of those other things.
I guess one last question. One of the pages in the report showed a rather massive 30-foot tall, I'm not quite sure how wide, concrete wall. My concern is when you have a wall of that magnitude, you're basically deflecting the sound back to the east side, which is now going to be right into an incorporated part of El Paso County. And then there's going to be the question of, oh, okay, what's the mitigation? Well, it'd be building a sound wall on the east side. We know that this is exactly what's happened on I-25 through Colorado Springs. So I don't know if that's something that, if they've met the minimum requirements, but there's got to be a way that just through common sense and experience of things that we've identified just by living here for a number of years, when certain things happen, the unintended consequences, how do we make sure that we as the county or whomever aren't stuck with fixing things that someone else created? Because that does hit our budget.
Commissioner Weissong, I just wanted to address a few of the questions that you had earlier. So engineering staff reviewed 4 different reports that were submitted: the utility exhibit, plan development plan, the drainage report, and the traffic study. We provided a bulleted, if you were to bullet the list, about 3 pages of comments. A lot of them were clarifying questions. Many of them were comments related to impacts to county infrastructure or county properties pending the annexation. So we did our best to provide feedback and comments and ask for questions and raise concerns for things that would impact unincorporated El Paso County. I'm pretty sure that Palmer Lake utilizes a lot of the same standards, either specifically or by adoption, that the county uses for engineering criteria. So adherence and conformance to either local, state, or national standards for engineering is probably the best way that we can control and support responsible development. In my experience with Palmer Lake is that they use a lot of the same state and national standards that the county does, that we would then try to work to enforce for any other type of development.
I'm not doubting that they would do that. My concern is because a 30-foot wall is going to have to be very well engineered for stability, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the unintended consequence of that 30-foot wall that is going to bounce the sound back to the east side. I don't know, being that when the city built the wall, they didn't go through that process. They went, whoops, we're going to have to come up with something. And since I didn't see anything in the report, that's why I'm asking the question.
We could provide recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of asking, along with some of the traffic recommendations that we've talked about. And I guess the question that maybe Commissioner Williams was waiting for this to be over, but my understanding is that we've provided feedback and they have chosen not to respond. Is that correct?
We have yet to hear back on any of the comments that we made, but my understanding is that they've followed all the statutory requirements for what they needed to submit.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Williams.
Okay, now I just have comments, so that's fine. On most annexations, I'm really, really excited for them to go into the city. I think cities, towns really, really benefit from these type of annexations. I first heard about this last November, or maybe even more than 2 years ago. And my first concern was I was really, really worried about semi-trucks, which is why I've focused in so hard on reading these reports and studying them, knowing that all we do is accept the annexation report, and knowing that the decision is not mine. My second concern came from when my friend, former mayor of Palmer Lake, Glant Havenar, told me about how her and her family has been treated. And that's not been fair. We do support, I personally support, private property rights in this county. If I am correct, which I may not be, but there are properties up in this area that have been in generations for 4 generations, and the 4th child has never even seen the property. They have every right to sell that property, and someone who wants to develop it has every right to pick it up. And my suspicion is that may have been what happened here. I don't know if this is the 4-generation family, but one of the reasons why I ask so many questions and I have statements is back in 2004, when we first started the Pikes Peak RTA, a gentleman who lives on Beacon Light Road, who has been in contact with me very frequently, said, however, are we going to get Beacon Light Road fixed? And we put that as a B-list project in the 2004 Pikes Peak RTA. So by the time we get to the 3rd round, it finally makes it to the top of the list. And we have to switch over and do Monument Hill Road first because of Palmer Ridge High School, but also because of the I-25 North, getting money and grant funding for that to put a tunnel under it. So this gentleman has waited for 25 years for us to pave Beacon Light Road, and it's a muddy, muddy mess when it snows up there. And so I've been paying close attention to this just because in my 7 years as commissioner, there's certainly been other controversial annexations, but this one in particular affected that constituent. So I'm going to say on the positive side, Palmer Lake desperately needs this tax revenue. And I will say that because they have a road, Highway 105 in Spruce Mountain, and CDOT went out and looked at that. Highway 105 is a CDOT-owned road. It's nowhere anywhere on CDOT's list to fix. I believe there are 2 bridges there. The old bridge, and then to save money, they just built the new bridge over it, which means that, and it's a major intersection for this little small town of Palmer Lake, it ices over in every storm, and it becomes very, very dangerous. And I hope that if Palmer Lake does decide to go forward with this annexation, that they prioritize that intersection, because I can assure you that I do not know, and serving on several CDOT committees, I don't know if it's even in their 10-year plan to fix that particular intersection. And it is an ice rink when it ices over in the winter. So it's a very dangerous intersection. I do want the roads to county. I do want the roads to good standards. The theory is when you annex, you do expect more traffic on the roads. I think the primary traffic is going to be in and out of the Buc-ee's back to I-25, but I do want to see County Line Road taken care of well and Beacon Light Road taken care of. Prefer to drive the traffic back out to I-25 Because of the state of Beacon Light Road, it's going to be a Pikes Peak RTA project, but it is still dirt. And it's just not the way to turn out of Buc-ee's for many years to come until that's finally paved. I'm going to say in the negatives, and I am worried about the lighting. And I hope that the Palmer Lake Town Council does something to make sure the lighting is not going to affect those residents specifically to the west. I don't know how far it would go to the east, but I know my Woodmore residents were concerned about that. There is the wildlife. I think that the Douglas County Wildlife Bridge will take care of most of the wildlife going north. I'm probably not, some days not quite as smart as the deer, but today I hope I'm on target here by saying that if I were a deer or any sort of wildlife, I'd go north toward that bridge, and I'd figure that out pretty quick. And so I have been disappointed in this process. I feel it's been rushed due to the special election that is occurring. And that's been hard for me because I don't feel like the issue is ripe when there's recall elections going on. And so I have been disappointed in the developer for doing that and rushing the process. And I sincerely hope that Palmer Lake Fire also invests seriously in the equipment needed for this, to handle this site and to make sure that this does not pose a wildfire risk. Palmer Lake Fire is a small department. Tri-Lakes Fire handles most everything up in the northern area, but I know that Palmer Lake Fire will benefit greatly from this. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I am excited because Palmer Lake will need revenue for this. They're going to need the revenue. I read through the revenue agreement. It appears, to be, the cost sharing appears to be fair. All of this is, of course, up to the town of Palmer Lake to decide, but I did want to put my statements into the record so that I can make sure that our roads are up to county standards, we're careful with the wildfire, and we're careful with the light. And I really don't want traffic going south on Beacon Light Road until we get it fixed. We obviously can't prevent people from going down Furrow, Monument Hill Road, Roller Coaster Road. These roads in Woodmore are dangerous in the winter. And they are not large roads. They do not have, many of them do not have sidewalks. And so for that traffic to consider going any further east than I-25 or even Monument Hill Road is a problem. And I know that I could plead with Buc-ee's to try and make sure that doesn't happen. So if this project is approved, we ask the business owner to try and make sure that doesn't happen. Because while Google might direct you to another road, that doesn't mean that that road is the safest road to go down. And those roads are not wide roads. They have a lot of foot traffic on them. And we do get sales tax from them to improve these roads, but it takes us time because we are a very big county. So those are my comments. I wish the town of Palmer Lake and its citizens the best of luck on this issue. It's obviously a very controversial one, but I do wish them the best of luck that this goes the way they need it to go.
Commissioner Wysong.
Question, we passed P10 on the road for Beacon Light, so this will be not you. When is that going to start? The Beacon Light work? Yes. Correct. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
I just have a comment. I want to repeat what I've heard so far, that regarding the statutory requirement for the county, the annexation impact report requirements were met. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. So just understanding what our role is here today, and I am a big champion of the proper role of government and it's staying in its lane. And I appreciate that there are more local municipalities that are responsible for this decision and have the authority over this decision. That is not this commission board's role to play here. And so given what we have heard, the impact report met statutory requirements, I will be, voting to approve or receive or accept, whatever the proper terminology is, of this report. And I believe that private property rights are foundational, a foundational principle to what our country was built upon. And so we must protect that freedom.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we do not vote on these, so it is just an informational item. However, we do have the opportunity to direct staff, as I mentioned earlier, to continue to work with Palmer Lake staff on receiving any clarifications or questions that we may have. So we do have that ability to kind of do thumbs up on that type of direction, just to be clear. Did you want to?
Thank you for that reminder. I was informed of that, and I'm not using the correct terminology. So I personally do not have interest in further effort on our staff's part. There are no further questions that I have. So I'll just make that statement.
Okay. Do we have additional comments? Okay, Commissioner Applegate.
My biggest thing is I just want to thank staff. Thank you for continuing to look into this and keep us updated if anything changes or there's anything major that goes on. So thank you, Justin. Thank you, DPW, Megan, everybody. So appreciate it.
I'll just add my comments and really appreciate Commissioner Nelson's comments and Commissioner Williams' comments on, some of the of course we want to do the best to protect our community. At the same point, this is not our decision to make. I'm always very hesitant to weigh in without all of the facts. Whenever we have quasi-judicial issues, as this certainly is in Palmer Lake, we are required legally to come to it from a neutral perspective until we have all of the facts in front of us. And that certainly is the case for the leaders, the elected leaders in Palmer Lake, who are going to have to come to this neutrally and look at their criteria and look at everything that's in the application in pursuit of protecting private property rights and also meeting requirements that are put in place for public safety and those type of things. So I don't particularly like to make statements or judgments without facts in front of me. So, and that's not my role here today. So I agree that because, we are hearing this as just an informational item, and it sounds like the requirements under statute have been made, and we've confirmed that with staff and our attorneys. It does sound that, those things have been made. Maybe we would have liked to see more responses or things they're not required to. And certainly we may be in the position down the road where someone isn't required to respond to us, and that's within our authority to make those decisions. If there are, and I would ask Josh in particular, are there outstanding drainage or serious concerns that we feel like are going to negatively impact, or are we still just waiting for clarifications at this point?
I think at this point it's just clarification, but of all the comments we made, I would say the impacts to drainage or the implications to drainage are probably the most important, because we can't control necessarily where the water comes from, but we do have a responsibility to try to mitigate the impacts once it comes onto county roads or county parcels. So there's quite a few comments requesting clarification on that, but at this point it's not a concern until we get some answers.
Okay. So I would say, I would love to get, I would be supportive of us directing staff to continue to work to get those so that if there are things, so we can get those clarifications, so we can either decide that this is not something we're going to have concerns with, or maybe we are considering some impacts so that we can plan appropriately ahead of time to work through those impacts. So I would be okay with just directing staff, particularly on those clarifications, to reach out to Palmer Lake again and ask those, and continue to work with them. I know that they're, I don't know the ins and outs. I haven't followed this so closely that I know, but I know that there was a withdrawal and there have been some changes. So I also know, and we've discussed this here during some of these impact reports from small municipalities. Small municipalities have very different sized staff. They just have very different types of processes. We are a very large county and we have a lot of resources. So I want to give them the opportunity to be able to continue to respond. I know they've had some changes in staffing over there as well. So I'm in support of just getting those clarifications so that we can plan for the future, just to continue to do that work. So I guess really what we would be asking for at this point is, do we have thumbs up from the commission to give direction to staff to just continue to have those conversations to look for those clarifications?
I'm very much in support of that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is wise to get that clarification so that we can be more forward thinking in our planning of our roads and the impact of drainage, especially as you're taking a surface and now putting asphalt down. The water will not be absorbing into the ground as it was. So if you still have questions around that, then absolutely get that clarification. But I don't have any additional things that I would want. But yeah, I support that. Thank you.
Great. It looks like I see multiple thumbs up or head nods on that. So I think we can consider that direction to staff. And I think Commissioner Applegate has additional comments.
I was just saying I was comfortable with that. So
Okay,
moving
great.
forward, yeah. So.
Madam Chair, Jack Ladley, Director of Public Works. If I may, as this process progresses and as this development continues, assuming that it does continue, rest assured our development inspectors will be monitoring stormwater issues, traffic issues, those things that impact county infrastructure. So that's just a normal process and a part of what we do. I just wanted to throw that out there for clarification.
Great. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Are there additional either comments from staff on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions from commissioners on this item? Okay. And again, because it's just informational, we can conclude this item and proceed. Thank you so much. At this time, because we are running a bit behind where we thought we might, as sometimes happens in these meetings, and we do have a noticed work session, we are going to recess this meeting so that we can enter into that work session meeting, and we will come back to the remainder of the agenda on this meeting. So with that, this meeting is in recess. Good morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners work session. Today is August 26th. We are here in Centennial Hall, and today we are going to be speaking about the Project Odyssey at North Weber tax increment financing request. I'll ask the clerk to the board. Do you want to read that further into the record? Did I steal your thunder there? Okay. We don't do these work sessions very often, so they're obviously a little bit different. So appreciate your patience. And so I will go ahead and turn it over to our presenter, Crystal Latier.
Thank you very much. As mentioned, Crystal Latier, Executive Director of Economic Development here at El Paso County. Thank you for your time this morning to hear the Odyssey at North Weber tax increment financing request. As you'll note, we'll have a series of presenters today that will include El Paso County staff, the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority, as well as the development team working on this project. So for those watching online or in the room who are not familiar with our process, we have a very thorough and strategic process when we receive a tax increment financing request. Today, we find ourselves, as you'll see, at the working session with the Board of County Commissioners and the developer. For those tuning in online, that means that this is a non-voting working session. We will present information and take questions and direction from the Board of County Commissioners, but there will be no vote at the conclusion of the presentation today. Another quick reminder related to these tax increment financing requests, El Paso County has no authority over the blight designation. That lies with the City of Colorado Springs and the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority, and they follow the state statute that allows for that blight designation. For this project specifically, 5 of the 11 qualifying conditions of blight were found in the area for that blight designation. So let's talk a little bit about today's project. Odyssey at North Weber is located in Commissioner District 3. It is comprised of 2 parcels, a little over 4 acres of land. The development proposed on this will be 120 residential multifamily units of housing, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, ranging from 80 to 120% of our area median income. Just for everyone's situational awareness, the area median income right now in El Paso County is about $112,000. So this is considered workforce housing for those earning 80 to 120% of our area median income. Here's just a few snippets of the proposed site plan. Something to note is that Craig Moore, there will be some adjustments made there, and that is, as you can see, being turned into, closing that street and turning it into a cul-de-sac. Additionally, this is just a site location to show you kind of a bird's eye view of where that's located, right outside kind of the North Nevada corridor there. And some additional photos of the vacant land, parcel of land, as well as a portion of a parking area. So as a reminder, these units on average will serve those earning about 80% AMI. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a breakdown of not only the units, the number of units that will be 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, but proposed rent per unit as well. At this time, I will turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Nikki Simmons, to talk through some of the financial aspects of the TIF request.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer. So this request does not have a sales tax component. So the conversation will be about the property tax request. The developer is requesting 100% of the property tax increment generated by the project. So currently, according to, sorry, let me back up. As always, your financial services team recalculates the numbers because we know a little bit more about our plans with our mill levy, and when we're in current reduced mill levy situations. The way that EPS, which is the consultant that the URA uses to put together these projections, the way they do that is they're only able to take the current mill levy, which we know might not be the same mill levy that we'll be issuing in the future. So we recalculate it with our full mill levy and to get closer to the actual impact, because we won't always be in a temporarily reduced situation. And so these are EPS's numbers on the screen here, and then the next screen you'll see the financial services reprojection. So at this point, the county share of the property tax base is $1,424. You'll note that that continues to grow through the life of the project through 2050. That grows as if it were any other property, as if nothing was done to it. And so we would continue to receive what we're receiving now. Over the course of the 25 years, the developer expects a $376,000 increment, and the county would retain $43,000. When El Paso County's financial services team goes in and recalculates that number, we actually get a little closer to $480,000, and that's primarily because we were in a significantly reduced mill levy with the mill levy that they used for this. And so If we were able to issue a full mill levy, it'd be $480,524 over the course of the same 25 years for $19,221 on average throughout the course of that time. One of the questions that always comes up is what percentage of our overall mill levy is in a tax increment financing district. This would change that calculation by 0.0071%. And I just got brand new information yesterday from our assessor's office. We're a little over 2% in our overall mill levy, overall assessed valuation in current tax increment financing districts. The county has sort of set a best practice of less than 5%, so we're nowhere near that number at this point, and it would just change that number by that 0.0071%. So overall, the overall calculation is just the $480,000. And as always, you ask us for like what that would be in today's dollars. So if it was all in today with a net present value of $282,000. Additionally, we look at the development and the citizens that will move in and the costs to serve those citizens. And even if the citizens live in incorporated areas such as Colorado Springs, there's still a very real cost for El Paso County to serve those citizens, such as human services, justice services, the sheriff's office. Common misperception that we don't provide sheriff services in city limits. We absolutely do. We just don't provide patrol, which is actually a very small part of our sheriff's office budget. Public health, district attorney, things like that are provided to all citizens. So the cost to serve a resident within an incorporated area in 2025 is $342, which is about just shy of $100,000 for those 286 residents that this project is expected to bring in. And so overall, we consider that the county would retain 100% of any sales tax generated by those residents, as there's not a sales tax component to those, because those new residents would continue to spend money, but the property taxes would be retained by the project.
And so as we wrap up staff presentation, just a few more notes about community impacts related to the project. As the commission knows, we typically receive in the impact report from EPS and the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority kind of a list of eligible public improvements that they've put together. Staff always goes through that list and also comes up with the El Paso County prioritized eligible public improvements. So that's why you see the two different tables in front of you. And so for an El Paso County standpoint, those public improvements really, I think, relate more to the infrastructure, and you see that we've taken out the value of those attainable units. However, we did want to mention that this development specifically will add additional rental units for working residents, and this is proposed to be for our workforce. So think of folks like teachers, healthcare workers, government employees, and service employees. Those really fall in that 80 to 120% area median income. We also wanted to note there are lots of conversations right now, as well as a large-scale regional initiative related to childcare. And so this would be right next to an existing childcare facility, which has some nice nexus. And then obviously, as Ms. Simmons noted, this would generate a significant amount of property tax at the conclusion of the TIF. At this time, I will turn it over to the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority Executive Director, Jariah Walker.
Thank you, Commissioners. Jariah Walker, Executive Director of the Urban Renewal Authority. Commissioner Nelson, wonderful seeing you here. It's given me deja vu with School District 11. It's pretty cool. I think county staff, and I think I say this every time, and it goes without saying, you've got an incredible county staff who does an unbelievable analysis on these projects. So thank you to all of them. One other note, Crystal had actually already alluded to one point I was going to make about being near childcare. But on top of that, this area is within a broader study framework in that North Nevada corridor between Garden of the Gods and Fillmore, that there's been a lot of community efforts in studying what type of broader infrastructure improvements can go into this corridor. As you know, we're lacking sales tax in that area, curb and gutter, sidewalks. There's a lot of power line utility issues. This project is one thing that came out of a broader ULI study of incorporating more residential components in this corridor, not only for some of these neighborhoods, but also as a partnership with UCCS and being able to provide this type of housing that frankly is really tough to build right now. Unfortunately, some of this affordable housing that's out there, people who make, again, when we talk about teachers, police, government workers, they make too much money. They don't qualify for a lot of that type of housing. And then other housing, they're priced right out of. And so this kind of meets that missing middle piece that we've talked so much about and needing in this community. The URA has been working with this development group for just about a year now of bringing this project forward. So we're super excited. And this is the first stop with the taxing entities to get your input on it. So with that being said, I'm here to answer any questions. We do have online EPS. They're the ones who do the condition study and all those numbers that Nikki was talking about. So if there's any particular question on the methods they used or how they did that, they're online. I also have our attorney, David Neville, who's the author of those TIF agreements, and he knows Kenneth Hodge as well. So if there's any questions as it relates to the legality of the agreement, he's here too. I'd like to take this time to introduce Drew Geiser with Blue Truck Capital to talk about this project briefly, and I told him briefly, and then he can introduce his team as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm not as apt at public speaking, so you guys will have to forgive me if my voice is a little shaky. My name is Drew Geiser. I have Adam Fenton here as well, who's on the development team, and we put together a PowerPoint. All right.
Perfect. Sorry, I left you hanging there.
That's all right. Thank you. So I'll just cover our presentation real quick, tell you a little bit about the development team. Blue Truck Capital, we're a small developer. We focus solely in Colorado Springs. That's the only place that we operate. And we focus solely on infill development within the city limits, finding lots that aren't at their highest and best use, and then trying to bring them up to that. So on this site, it's 4.4 acres. We have an approved development plan and are in the permitting process already with the city. We are targeting towards the workforce or missing middle, which we'll cover here in a second as well. And then our bedroom mix is a little bit different than normal. So we do have 1 bed, 1 bath, 2 bed, 2 bath, but we also have a higher percentage of 3 bed, 2 bath based on the area as well than you would see on average. Average square footage is 932 feet across the units. As you can see on the 2 pictures at the bottom, the cul-de-sac that was mentioned, we didn't know that we owned a cul-de-sac until we bought the property, but apparently it was vacated prior to us buying it. So Cragmore had never been terminated there, but the city's been planning on it. So that's something that we've incorporated in our development plan. Some of the design aspects of it, typically you're going to see 24 dwelling units per building. What we've done is we've tried to go for a moderate density and do a 12 unit per building just to make it feel a little bit less and fit in with the neighborhood. Mix of modern and traditional design. We're trying to make sure that it fits in with, that established 1960s neighborhood and not stick out. We're going to offer some covered parking, community fitness space, and a leasing center at the very tip down there by the water retention. When we talk about missing middle, technical definitions 80 to 120%. We're trying to hit that 80 to 100%. It's something that, you know, as a son of a teacher and a retired fireman for 20 years, it's something that's really cool for us to try and go out and get to. But as Jariah mentioned, we don't have a lot of programs that help that 80 to 20%. You have a lot of affordable programs, and you have, you know, market rate. It's a lot easier to make the numbers work. So this has been a fun problem for us to try and solve. Here you have the 80 to 90% AMI renters. We have 30% of the units at 80%, 20% at 90% or below. So just when it comes to what we're doing for the community, this is to show you that. Location, this is the Renew North Nevada. You can see that we're just right outside the north zone because we'd be too easy if we were in it. So we're in the influence area right on the outside. I know that there's been a lot of talk about apartments in Colorado Springs, and one of the questions that comes up is the supply. In this area, there's been no new housing in a long time, to the point that our third-party market study has found that if you look at the city as a whole, there's a 5.7-year supply with 3 years of demand. If you look at our primary market, it's a 1.8-year supply for 3 years. So there's just not the housing in the immediate area. This is more the Renew Nevada master plan with student housing and the multifamily as part of the things that they were looking for. Obviously not student housing, but we do anticipate with the proximity that we'll have students there as well. Public improvements, this goes over our cul-de-sac as well as the water retention and stormwater that we'll be putting in. Financing, we are working through HUD, a 221D4, and they also started a new missing middle or workforce housing loan program, and that's something that we're part of as well. So when we say we're doing that from financing all the way through our design, that's something we've incorporated. Building plans currently reviewed, approved of the development, and then we have a local GC as well. So everything we're doing is local here in the community. The development team is made up of myself with Blue Truck, Narrate, and Renegade, and we all bring a little bit different skill set from property management, acquisitions, and development as we go through the process. Was that quick enough?
So staff or the development team are happy to take any questions from the commission at this time.
I actually have one question for the development team. I was just looking, where is this located compared to the old dog track?
Just north.
Just
So,
north, okay.
Yeah, if you look here where the Odyssey at North Weber, on the other side of that stormwater drainage creek, the dog track is just on the south side.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that this is a very useful area, useful project for homes and the middle market housing. I really do believe it is, just because there's a good spot here for individuals who are going to UCCS, but also for individuals who may be working just north of Garden of the Gods in that area, or even working down in El Paso County. But just a point of history is that when my dad came through Fort Carson in the 1950s, he went to the dog races. So that's why I'm sitting here trying to look really quick on the Google Maps to see where the dog track is. But he's smiling in heaven over that reference.
Commissioner Nelson.
I appreciate that your desire is to build housing that is attainable for those who are newer to their careers, and so at that lower end of the income range. And I'm curious for how long the rent would stay in that range. Is it the life of the TIF, and then after that point it could be increased?
So it's twofold. It's the life of the TIF as well as the life of the HUD loan. And the HUD
Life
loan
of
is
the what? Sorry.
HUD loan.
Okay.
And the HUD loan term is 40 years.
40 years.
So as long as we have that loan, there's requirements that we maintain it with that, as well as for the 25 years of the TIF.
Okay.
My understanding.
Yeah, and we'll build that into the development agreement if this project is successful through all the taxing entities. But to Drew's point, it's actually longer than even the TIF period.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Commissioner Weisong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was one of my questions too. We're looking at spending 125 million just on the road PPRTA on Nevada from Fillmore to Garden of the Gods, Austin Bluffs. And then whatever the URA does, through additional development, that obviously is going to have a huge impact on property tax. So is the property tax from the baseline going to stay at projected, or is there a cap at property tax that then comes back to the county?
The increase in property tax TIF kind of is what it is. We try to give you by working with the assessor's office, we try to give you the best guess of what that looks like. And that's what Nikki was speaking to as well. They're trying to project out as tight as possible at what that looks like. But whatever that amount of TIF is goes back into the project to go towards those approved public improvements that your staff presented to you.
Okay, and then this may be a Nikki question. No.
Okay. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Walker just said, in that the county will continue to receive the taxes on the property as if it wasn't developed. So if the average area increases in value just because other things have been done, then we will continue to see that grow. So it's not a flat, like it's always going to be worth, say the property's worth $100,000 today, as if it's always worth $100,000. That value continues to grow because it would be in our base anyway, and we would continue to see those property taxes. So it's only the improvements that the developer would put on the property that they would see the tax increment financing from.
Okay, and then we've kind of chatted about this offline, but I just want to go ahead and bring it up. Nikki, as you said, we're going to see that, year 25 or 26, depending on how you look at it, then the county will receive all of that property tax revenue. Well, that could have a huge impact on Tabor, which then means, it's always good, we're going to give it back. But is there the opportunity to look at potentially scaling that back in the last 5 or 4 years or whatever it is, to where we can start seeing a little bit of that property tax early, whether it's a formal agreement or if it's just some kind of memo of understanding that the county gets a little of that, so we're not taking that huge hit on year 25.
Yes, Commissioner, I absolutely think that is an option. And I would recommend if we were going to do something like that, it be formally done in our tax increment agreement. However, I mean, for this URA itself, I'm going to get, if I can, out of, can you help me get out of here and back into Crystal's presentation? That one right there. The amount of money that we're talking about in year 25 is, I don't want to sound flippant about it. It's significant to this project itself, but it is slow. I was trying to get to the page before I finish my sentence. Yeah. Is it that high? It is $19,000 in year 25. And so to do the work, I clicked too many times, to do the work to split that, I would think would be a lot of administrative work. I would highly recommend we look into a process like that. And we've been in conversations with Mr. Walker about that on some of the larger URA projects where we absolutely, there are certain ones that we have agreements with or we're looking at agreements with that are, a lot more money than this, where I think that we absolutely could look at scaling that over the last 5 years of the project or so to still get to the same net present value, but do it in a way where we don't get a Tabor hit in year 25. I think that's an absolutely amazing idea. Not sure that I would recommend it with $19,000 in year 25.
I would agree, but it's more the concept and the principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way that that's been done right now, and Mr. Walker can correct me if I'm wrong, I know that there's a government that locally that they have an agreement with to cost share some of the property taxes. Our assessor's office cannot handle the way that their system works. It all has to be in the tax increment financing agreement, and then there's an agreement between the URA to the government to share some of that back. So essentially, all of the taxes would go to the URA, and then the URA would be required to then write basically a check back to El Paso County for whatever portion that is. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. The only thing I would bring up is that when we finance these deals and you're issuing bonds and debt on them, it would be difficult to go to the bondholders and say, hey, by the way, in the last 5 years, we're not sure, you might not get all this, because that actually lowers the net present value of money. Which is why we're in front of the bodies to begin with. That's the only other note that I would add.
I would believe that we could minimize that because we could make a scale that is very clear and understandable to the investors. Thank you.
Okay. Jariah is leaning forward. He just can't wait to hear what I have to say. No, this actually looks like a very interesting project. I think we all know the rules around property tax and sales tax here. So this is one of those ones that's a bit more clear cut than some of the other projects. So I'm really interested in the childcare piece, and Crystal and I had a conversation around this just the other day. And so I think that's a really unique component of this, which is really fantastic. I think this one's minimal. I really appreciate Commissioner Weissong bringing up that we do want to continue having those conversations on future projects, because that is something that we are looking at. It just, I'm a huge supporter of Tabor, as I know most of you know, but this is one of those things when you have a giant dump because of a policy decision like this that is made, that shouldn't prevent us from being able to, serve those residents well, because it actually is a growth we're just not seeing, right? And so I really appreciate that being brought up, but I am comfortable on this one because of just the nature of what this one, and specifically is we also try not to change things, when you're midstream, as much as possible to make things predictable. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up my usual philosophy on these for the public that may be watching this meeting, which is I don't love this program. And I always say it's not because it's not a beautiful development, it's because the city has a responsibility to city infrastructure. And in these situations, the city gets to make us pay for their infrastructure. And that is not my favorite way of doing things. We each have our collections and our responsibilities, and that sometimes it can be frustrating. However, this one is a minimal impact, and we know what the rules are. So I won't let the fact that I disagree philosophically with the state policy, but they're very different. And it's funny because, Commissioner Nelson and I have had this conversation. If I'm sitting on city council, I'm like, great, we're bringing everybody else's tax revenue gets to pay for our infrastructure. And if I'm on D11, I'm going, great, the state's going to backfill us. We're just in a little bit different of a situation here. And so it always is a bit of a struggle and frustration for me that the policy works the way that it does. However, it is the policy. I do think this is a good project. So thank you for all of your work on it and cooperation on it. And I do have one question though. I appreciate you bringing up, for the developer. I really do appreciate you bringing up that apartment thing because that was in my head. So great job on predicting that question. But one of the things for, especially as we're talking about firefighters, teachers, understanding lots of people need to start at an apartment. But I do think that the way to really get out of the situations that are cyclical for families is homeownership. I think that is so important. So my question is, why apartments versus some sort of ownership?
State construction laws.
Thank you for saying that on the record.
Yeah, it's too risky. So, but we do single family. And we are building as an infill developer. We are building in the county out by Calhan, single family homes that are attainable to the first time home buyer. So as a developer, I am doing both. but within
And we
the
do
city
need
limits.
both, right? Not everyone's
I'm a-
always ready for a home,
My
but we
mom
just know it's
taught for
important.
35 years. The most wealth she created was paying off her house.
Right.
So no, I'm a firm believer.
Well, thank you for just answering that question. Like I said, great job on predicting that. And overall, it's great to hear about those projects that are happening too for ownership in our community. So thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
This is more of a question for staff of just my understanding of next steps in the process. Is this plot already zoned for multifamily, or will we now at some point have like a land use consideration or anything?
Zoned with an approved development plan. And
Sorry, say it again.
it's zoned with an approved development plan.
Okay.
So it's ready for us to pull permits.
All right,
Yeah.
good.
Commissioner Nelson, to your earlier question about internal process, so we are wrapping up the work session today, so this would find us at the formal BOCC agenda item at this time is being proposed for your September 2nd agenda.
Great. Any final questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, any final questions or comments from any of you folks? Okay. All right. Well, with that, we have come to the end of this agenda, and this work session is adjourned. I will call back to order the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. We are on item 12.
Item number 12 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
Item 13.
Item number 13 is the executive session. 13A, executive session pursuant to CRS 246402-4B for a conference with the county attorney's office for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions pertaining to the legal scope, authority, and appointment options of and for the Board of Adjustment. Kenneth Hodges, County Attorney, and Stephen Klafke, Chief Deputy County Attorney.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Weisong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Applegate.
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. We are in executive session.